All right, good morning, everybody. We're so honored and excited with this class, Eviction Defense and Preventing Homeless amid COVID-19, presented from Camilo Parra. Licenciado Parra is spent his 3 years on law school and the first 2 years of practicing law advocating for the homeless, and he's going to be teaching us how to avoid homelessness by eviction. In the name of Forsyth Wood Elementary, that we have the honor to join also, Eagle Net Elementary School, Weingart Elementary School, and Ventura Elementary School putting together this effort in a collaboration with University of Florida and Licenciado Parra. This is a two-part workshop. This workshop will start with Jenny Viles Rodriguez. Jenny is a agent of Family Consumer Science of University of Florida, IFES Extension. Jenny want to join how to save money when disasters strike. Rápido en español, si hay alguien que no hable el inglés, estamos comenzando la clase oficialmente. Esta clase está auspiciada por 4 escuelas elementales que nos unimos fuerza para que fuera posible. Forsyth Wood, Eagle Net, Weingart Elementary, Ventura Elementary, en colaboración con la Universidad de la Florida y el licenciado Camilo Parra. Estaremos presentando 2 partes de un taller, cómo prevenir ser homeless a través de la moratorium. El licenciado Parra va a estar enseñándonos y cómo guardar o ahorrar dinero en momentos de desastres. Presentada por Jenny Avilés Rodríguez. Jenny, in your hands. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your patience this morning. I welcome you and I thank Ventura Elementary and Attorney Parra. I appreciate so much your time with us this morning. What we're going to do is we'll switch slides. If you'd like, I can pass the slides for you or however you'd like to do that when we get to your portion. So like Guillermo said, my name is Jenny Rodriguez. I work with Family Consumer Science area of the University of Florida's extension system. So feel free to join in this workshop. We want this to be as engaging as possible. And so please feel free to jump in if you have questions or you want to put something in the chat. How many of you are familiar with the extension system? I'm just curious of the people that are on the call. If you're, feel free to unmute or put it on the chat. We are located right off of South Conway, so we're very close to Ventura Elementary. If you're not familiar with extension, we have a lot of different workshops. We have a beautiful exploration garden. Our facility is open to the public, pretty much 24 hours. You can explore the gardens. There's no check-in point or anything like that. But if you do want to take a workshop or you want to go inside the building, we do have some, COVID restrictions and check-in just to sign in. But you can get a lot of information on our website. You just put in UF-IFAS Extension Orange County, and you'll see our workshops, our schedule, and our calendar. So today's topic is, like Guillermo said, it's a 2-part workshop, tracking your expenses and saving money. We do in-depth financial management classes, but this morning's workshop is going to be just a brief bullet point of tips and strategies of how to save money. And I'm going to turn off my camera here in a bit if I see that I'm getting a little unstable. So forgive me if you just see my image come up. So let's start out with just a brief question. Let's break the ice here, because financial management has a tendency to cause a lot of anxiety when we talk about money management, right? So how many of you can relate to that? Can you relate to the emotions attached to money management? Yeah, right? For the most part, everybody goes through it, right? It's like a roller coaster of emotions. Some days are good, some days are bad. And so that's understandable. And especially now with the pandemic, right? We have a lot of things to consider, layoffs, furloughs. St. Clair put in the chat, yes. And Norman put in the chat, yes. Thank you so much for participating. So yeah, we can relate. We can all relate to the different emotions attached to money. We want to make sure, you know, that Extension prides themselves in providing practical day-to-day tips. And we want to be able to make that user-friendly, not just for yourself, your spouse, but your kids too, because that's what it's all about, right? Passing on good habits so that they can go on to become good money managers themselves. So don't despair. There's many resources available to help us all resolve our, you know, when we're in a crisis related to housing, food, health, and debt. You know, there's something available for all of us. It's just a matter of asking for help and searching for those resources. So financial decisions, we know that they're all about more than just the money aspect, right? We know that there's what's influencing our money decisions can be values, culture, right? Traditions, maybe just experiences that you enjoy, something that you do in your own family. Maybe that's going out to eat once a week, right? Or maybe it's not. Maybe maybe it's, you know, once a month that you allocate that. Or sometimes there's something in particular that you like to put your money into. So in the Spanish culture, I'm from Puerto Rico, and we celebrate quinceañero, right? The sweet 16, or in Spanish, quinceañero. Are we doing this bilingual, Guillermo? I just remember.
No, we don't have any parent translation right now.
Okay.
Is Pamela show joining, then I switch.
Okay, good. Okay, so quinceañero, no problem. So, you know, for us, the quinceañero the cost has a tendency to be from anywhere from 5,000 to 15,000. Is similar to bar mitzvahs, right? It's traditional. And a lot of times, you know, that happens where you're swayed by the tradition in your family and how other members in your family, what they're expecting of you, right? It's not just getting the quinceañero done, but sometimes family can influence that decision of how much you're going to spend. And they sort of, you know, make you feel guilty, and sometimes you feel like, oh, you didn't do a good enough job. So all those emotions are attached to money.
Jenny, I'm sorry to interrupt, because I'm forwarding my information link. People start show up with my name on it. But anyway, yeah. We have another person. Welcome to the class. We just start.
Yes, thank you for coming in. Thank you.
And can you write your name in the chat, because what I found forward mine, you came as Guillermo Rodriguez, and I think that's myself.
Yeah, it's the link is set up that way, so
okay.
Apologize for the confusion.
I'm sorry for the confusion.
Just put your name in the chat, and then we'll rename you as people come in. We'll just rename them.
Perfect. You can do that.
Yeah, after this presentation, I'll go in, and as long as name in the chat, I can just rename.
Yeah, si las personas que están en el chat no hablan inglés, estamos hablando de que como yo estoy pasando el enlace, están entrando con mi nombre. Bienvenidos a la clase, pero por favor pongan su nombre en el chat para saber y poder cambiar su nombre.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here.
And déjeme saber si no hablan inglés, por favor, en el chat.
Yeah, we'll catch you up. Si hablan español, no hay problema. Le vamos a pasar la información en español. Okay, I think I'm having a little bit of internet issue. Okay, so basically, you know, what happens when we have money issues? How many of us have been, feel free to shout this out or raise your hand. How many of you have found yourself frustrated, and we pass on our frustrations in front of our children? That's me. I think
me too.
Human, right? We've all done it. We pass on our frustrations to our children. We voice our opinions about money, the lack of, or perhaps something that's coming up and that sneaks up on you, a car repair, maybe a water leak in your home, or maybe just you don't have enough to pay the rent. So all these experiences, our children essentially imitate our own behaviors with respect to money. And so they'll either have a good experience, a bad experience, or they'll have confusion. And so the idea is to define for everyone in the household, what are our values, needs, and wants, right? So values, we know that that's what's important to you, right? Or perhaps it's the quinceañero that you want to save up for, sweet 16, bar mitzvah, all these other traditional events. And that's fine if that's your household, it's your finances, and this is not to make you feel guilty or or we're not judging your decision. It's in your family that you decide what you value and where you're going to put that money and how are you going to allocate for each of your values, your needs, and your wants. So what is the need? The need is something you can't do without, right? We need clothing. We can't go around without clothing, right? We need food to survive. We need our rent. We need to pay the rent. We need a roof over our heads, so we need to pay that rent. And wants is everything else. So wants is just, if you want that pastime, want to go out to eat, wherever you want to go out to eat, right? Those are your wants. Those are your more of your flexible expenses. So again, we're talking about your needs: shelter, food, clothing, transportation, and healthcare. Healthcare is an important one. A lot of times we don't separate our funds to cover healthcare or out-of-pocket expenses, or maybe like in my case, my son has asthma, so his asthma pump, I have to allocate separate funds and be wary of the fact that that's coming up, right? He might need that refill. So those decisions are all influenced by your own situation in your household, your characteristics of your household, your upbringing, and your culture. So the cash flow. Cash flow is, something that a lot of people forget about. The end of the week. I'm gonna have to turn off my camera. I'm sorry. Okay.
Working good.
Yeah, on my end, it keeps popping up, so I don't get frozen on your end.
No, everything good.
Okay. So cash flow, we want to make sure cash flow, is that we allocate enough of a budget during the week so that we have that cash flow for emergencies, for gas, whatever the case might be. We're thinking ahead. And so a lot of times, we forget that we have to communicate with our family members. So if you have teenagers in your home, sometimes they pull in one direction and you already have your funds allocated for that month. And so what the experts recommend is that you occasionally, what you want to do is to have that discussion with your family members. How are we going to keep track of that cash flow, right? In case we need that. So we want to be able to track all of our spending, every penny, because tracking is what reveals what your spending patterns are. And sometimes we need to know what the spending patterns are, not just for ourselves, but our children as well, our teenagers. My son is 12 years old. And so if I need to give him money for, whatever the case might be, that in school, if there's an activity, so you want to be able to track those little expenses that you think, oh, it's only $5, but $5 can add up. So if you're unaware and you're ignoring it, then that's when you end up in that bind, you end up with having an issue at the end of the week where you're at a negative. So you want to ask yourself if you're getting a good view of what your spending pattern is. So keep track of all the coffee, if you're the coffee drinker and you have a tendency to go to Starbucks, so keep track and record. And we're going to talk about the tools. So what kind of tools can we use to track our expenses? So first, let's just briefly talk about creating that budget, right? We want to create a budget. And like I said, we're going to just sit down, discuss it with our family members. And our budget is going to be based on your income, right? So just like the name suggests, a budget is based off your income and assigns a role for each dollar that you make, right? It's a great way to manage your money. And it's also the best way to make sure that you're not spending more than you make. So a good rule of thumb is to use a 50-30-20 breakdown for your budget. So what you're doing is you're starting with your after tax income, the amount that goes into your bank account each paycheck, and you're breaking that down into 3 parts. 50% would be needs. 30% would be wants, And then 20% is savings, right? That's going to be the debt reduction part, 20% savings. So any money that you save, or you're using it to pay down debt. So that's the easiest rule of thumb to remember, 50, 30, 20. And again, we talked about recording and your expenses as you go. And so what kind of tools can we use to do this, right? So Good Budget app. Any of you have heard of Good Budget app?
No, I do not.
Okay, so the Good Budget app it's a free app. But I will say that in every app, there's always at some point in the app, when you get more advanced into the app, they might charge a fee or they might require you subscription. So, it's up to you. I personally don't like those apps that start charging and they start asking for too much information. The ones I'm gonna present to you today do not compromise your identity or ask for social security or bank numbers. Be very, very careful of those apps. There is a lot of scams out there. So I'm only going to present to you the ones that I know and the ones that the university has already researched. Good Budget app does have a point where they want you to subscribe, but you don't need to go any further than the basics. So I just recommend what I'm showing you here is what I recommend. So the envelope system, how many of you have heard of the envelope system? So I don't know if you're like my grandmother used to use aluminum foil. She would wrap her money in aluminum foil and stick it under the bed. And that was her budget system. Okay. And then I've heard stories about how some people use the envelope system, right? And this is a good way to do it. We don't want to get into the habit of, using aluminum foil like my dear grandmother. We want to establish some routine, some system that is traceable, that is trackable, that you can see the pattern, that you can see that you have a positive cash flow at the end of the week or the end of the month, right? Mm-hmm. So the Good Budget app is just an envelope system. And as you can see here, you just put in what you're spending monthly, groceries, gas, your student loan, electricity, any cable expenses, car payment, car insurance, out-of-pocket medical, credit card. Notice here I put 4 cars. So if you have teenagers, you need to include that in there, right? Because the idea is to see the pattern, to see, okay, where am I spending way too much? Where do I need to make adjustments? So another great tool, and this is a free tool, is the money management calendar. How many of you have heard of the money management calendar that UFI Fifth Extension gives out for free? So this is something, if you're interested in it, reach out to me. Guillermo, can you put my email address on there in the chat?
Absolutely.
Running out of time here. Yeah. So I'm gonna rush through this a little bit because I want to give Attorney Parra enough time.
And he's in already?
Let me see. Yes, hi, Attorney. Hi. Buenos días, licenciado. Gracias por estar aquí. Thank you for being here. I'm gonna go through the slides fairly quickly here so I can give you the floor here because we want to have enough time for you and questions for you. Okay, so the management calendar, you all can access this. Just reach out to me. I can provide some for you. They're free. We also have, classes on how to use the money management calendar. And there's a workshop that goes into details about the money management calendar. So just please reach out if you're interested in that. Other forms of, resources that are out there and apps that are out there. I also have a list. So if you're interested in something like that, and you just want to browse through the different apps, I can send that to you as well. So how about food assistance? Oftentimes this is one of those large expenses. Let me go back to that slide. As you can see here in this Good Budget app, the groceries, what's allocated for groceries was $245, right? And that's monthly, but you can easily spend a lot more than that on groceries. So one way to do this is if you log on to myplate.gov, There's a template on there for how to budget your groceries and still eat healthy. And so, you know, that means shopping on a budget, shopping fresh, frozen, and canned. So mixing your options up. A lot of people have the misconception that eating canned food is not healthy. But if you go on choosemyplate.gov, they also have an app. They will guide you through how to make those healthy choices. Low sodium, low sugar, how to read the labels on the foods and the cans, and that'll help you make good budget, good shopping on a budget decisions. And so the ones I have up here, I'm sure you're familiar with. You know, there are SNAP benefits if you find yourself that you just can't put enough into your groceries. Feeding Florida, if you log on to feedingflorida.org, it'll give you a listing of the different food pantries, the free meals for kids. That's going on right now through OCPS, free meals for kids. And then there's also the full cart meal. So all these are apps that you can check out for different sites that have, again, food pantries, and all you need to do is put in the zip code and it'll tell you where to go, whether it's a church or an organization that's distributing. It'll give you a good resource for food. And then the other one that I didn't put on there, I just want to mention briefly, Guillermo, if you could put this on the chat, is you can text food FL, or you can dial 211 for more resources. Food FL is, or you can dial 877-877.
877?
Yeah, you can text, you can dial 211 and text food FL to 877-877. And then if I know that's a little confusing, so I'm gonna pull up the.
Yeah, just scribble it because
I'll pull up the website and put it on the chat when I'm done with mine.
When you are when Parra is doing it, because I don't want it misspelling or anything like that.
Yeah, no problem. So choosemyplate.gov, we already talked about this, so I'll just rush through this real quick. But just to let you know, choosemyplate.gov is in Spanish and English and Creole. There's templates on there. And then this is fairly new, their app. There's also great My Plate quiz. And it's something that you can do with your children and at the same time teach them how to shop on a budget. So while you're at the supermarket, you can open it up on your phone, and you can search aisle by aisle, good budget shopping tips. So in recipes within a budget. So, you know, this whole misconception that it's too difficult, it's too expensive to eat healthy is a total myth, because choosemyplate.gov has it all laid out for you. So if you have questions about that, we also have workshops on this topic by itself at Extension. We have a registered dietitian. Her name is Virgilia Zavala, and she will walk you through how to do this. So if you're interested in that, you know, reach out and let me know. Rental assistance, we know that Orange County has the rental assistance available through their site, orangecountyfl.net, through their portal. And they also have the foodpantries.org is also the other site that I was trying to remember, foodpantries.org. But if you are looking for rental assistance, you know, you can apply through the Orange County website, orangecountyfl.net. And, you know, bear in mind that there's the Orange County office also has the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. And what I would do is I would just take a picture of this slide here. It might be easier.
Pueden tomar una fotografía en este momento si quieren al teléfono o a la computadora para que te guarden los
and I can always make the slides. I can always make the slides available to you, Guillermo.
Thank you.
So definitely, you know, if you're looking for more resources, check out the Family Self-Sufficiency Program through Orange County, Florida. Other apps that are available, how many of you have heard of Flip, Spend Smart, Eat Smart, and Poshmark? Anybody have heard of them? Yes, okay. Thank you, Christine. Yes, a lot, you know, it's funny, a lot of people don't know about them. So I was kind of, I myself, I have to admit, I did not know about Poshmark. So that was like really interesting to learn about it. So these are just ways to decrease your expenses, right? So we're talking about decreasing your expenses or increasing your income. And these are just quick, easy tips that you can put in. So for instance, for Flip, it's an app, so you can download the app. I put in 32812, right? For the South Conway area. And immediately you'll get all the coupons available within your app. And it'll give you the what coupons are available, right? And it'll give you a date, so they do expire. So it'll tell you, okay, this coupon is available at this store. When Dixie Publix, you know, UFIFIS doesn't promote any of the grocery stores, but I just wanted to point out that that's the way the app functions. So you just put in the zip code and it'll give you all the coupons for your area. Now, just remember this coupon here, because I'm gonna explain a little bit about the loyalty card. So once you find the coupon, you go to the grocery store and you ask them for the loyalty card and you activate it on your phone, and then you go back to Flip, and then it'll automatically generate the coupon on your cell phone. So every time you go to that store, if this is something that you buy often, whether it's yogurt, milk, eggs, it'll automatically generate the coupon into your cell phone. So when you go to the grocery store, it's available for you.
But I don't have that. That's great.
Yeah. I know. Poshmark this is another great site. And this one is designed to, it's kind of, I call this like the, and anybody that's familiar with Poshmark, please feel free to jump in, Christine, because I'm just now learning it. But Poshmark, it's like a garage sale online, pretty much, right? And you just take a picture, and then once you take that photo of the item that you want to sell, you share it, and then anybody that wants to purchase it, it's just as simple as that. They'll reach out with questions. Let me see. Yeah, exactly. It's an excellent service. I agree. And so this is just a quick, easy thing. And now with the pandemic, what better way to do, to sell or even shop if you're looking for something and you're on a budget? And this is one way to do that. So Spend Smart, Eat Smart is our sister university extension, Iowa State Extension. And if you Google the different extension offices, we all have something to offer when it comes to financial management, nutrition. So Iowa State University has the Spend Smart, Eat Smart. And it kind of mirrors a little bit the myplate.gov, choosemyplate.gov. But this one is interesting because it breaks down the food labels. It has another way to track your food expenses. And it also has a lot of videos on there. So this is a good one that is worth checking out. Especially when you're trying to plan your meals ahead of time on a budget. LIHEAP. If you're not familiar with LIHEAP is a program run by the Orange County office as well. And it's, I just realized this one's in Spanish. Okay. So LIHEAP, it provides assistance for electric bill, but bear in mind that this is not something that's available all throughout the year. The assistance is available online, and I believe there is a limit. So if you go on their website, just put LIHEAP Orange County, and it'll give you all the guidelines. It says it right here, eligible clients can receive multiple benefits up to $2,000 year-round or through August 31st, 2021, but is subject to availability of funds. So that's what I mean by it's not just readily available. So just be sure, and if you're not sure, just call and ask and talk to them. They will usually post it on their website, like when they will be distributing those funds. So there is an application process, but it's definitely worth it to look into this, especially now with a lot of job loss and furloughs. And then the other for housing, you can also contact the Continuum of Care program. The website is right here, HUD Exchange Info, and this is for homelessness assistance. So if you find yourself that you're on the verge of homelessness, this is a good website to look into, or you can just dial 211, and that is a hotline available to anybody in the community, and trained staff will walk you through the process of, assistance to prevent. Okay, I'm gonna go.
Yes, yeah, we definitely will do.
Okay.
No, I'm not saying the question. I have a question in the chat.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, so we want to avoid temptations when we're shopping. We want to stay out of stores that are triggers of ours. Once we identify that spending pattern, our spending pattern, right? We want to stay out of stores. A deal is not a deal if you have to finance the item on your credit card. So we want to those triggers, right? Avoid reward purchases. Oftentimes we rationalize in our head, oh, I deserve it. I worked so hard. But really, we want to rationalize it using our money management calendar, looking at the app. If we're going to spend time uploading that profile with all of our expenses, then glance at it every day or once a week and see your spending pattern before you make that decision or reward yourself with a purchase. We're not saying that this is a bad thing. We're just saying that inform yourself before you decide. Okay, so and how do we do that? How else can we do that? We can use visual reminders, place a reminder card in your wallet next to your credit card. And on that, on that little piece of paper in the card, you're gonna actually you can actually write on it and put, okay, what is your balance? Or you can just keep your money management calendar. Remember that's an actual calendar. It's not an app. So you can stick that in your glove compartment in your car and just use that. Or if you're doing the envelope system, actual envelopes and not the app. Some people don't like, the apps, then just stick that envelope system, put it in your glove compartment and glance at it. How much do you need to put in those envelopes for your bills? Can you afford to eat out that day, buy lunch out, right? So the idea is to just have a system in place, whatever works for you. And that way you're reducing your expenses and freeing up cash for other emergency expenses that you might have. And just in general, you want to have that positive cash flow at the end of the week. And so you want to also, another way to do this is to impose a waiting period. When something shiny stands out, right, catches your eye, you want to just go home and sleep on it. Tell yourself that if you're still thinking about it after 48 hours, you'll be able to consider, the purchase, right? Just give yourself that waiting period and then actually make that decision. And while you're in that waiting period, pull out that money management calendar or the app. And again, review what your spending patterns are. That's the key. So to summarize, so that we can give Attorney Parra his session here, good money management skills, they're critical to life success, but also our children are observing and watching everything that we do. So we want to discuss all these tips and strategies with them. The spending plan process is, number one, we talked about determining what our values, needs, and wants are, right? Setting those priorities. Number two, we want to pick what tracking tool you're going to use. So track your spending. Number three, set smart financial goals. We didn't touch on this too much, but this is the discussion you're going to have with your family members. And what are your priorities? What are your goals for your family? Number four, determine your income. Number five, write down spending and saving amounts by category, which you can use with the money management calendar that lays out the categories nicely for you. And number six, you want to adjust as needed. And so bear in mind that these 6 steps are actual workshops that we host at Extension. So if you're interested in a workshop that talks about all these things in depth, reach out to me. And I'm going to stop sharing. And let's see. Do you want me to do your slides, Attorney Parra?
Do you have them?
Oh,
we don't have it.
I
Okay,
got it. No worries. I can take care of it.
All right.
Yeah, okay, so let me make you host.
Okay.
And then you can have access.
Okay, let me talk a little bit until you do that. Thank you so much, Jenny, and Orange UF Extension Families Consumer Science for this program. Here in Ventura, I want to just before introduce Licenciado Camilo Parra, I just want to give you a little bit what is a parent engagement liaison for you have an idea. Right now we have 4 different elementary school, although 4 elementary school, they're Title I school. That means our main family of the are low income. They're qualified to be on a program of free food during the elementary school. It's a topic that is uncomfortable, and many of the parents don't feel to share with everybody when they're homeless or what they're about it. And it's so meaningful that have 4 parent engagement. Our main responsibility in the school is providing tool and help for the family of the school. And their most trust, they trust us. We close the office and we provide the resources. And it's very important that that we may not have a lot of people, but through the parent engagement liaison, we're gonna have this video recorder. We're gonna share and the video with and the resources with the family via email or direct one-on-one. And I understand that the moratorium have a deadline. I know I have many questions in the name of my over 15 family that we have here homeless. That this is a private, it's a more of that, but just to have an idea, information. Basically, what I want you to know that we have 4 parent engagement liaisons right here. Forsyth Wood Elementary. We have Eagle. Yes, say hi.
Hi.
Madeline Rodriguez. Eagle Nest Elementary. You can jump in.
Guillermo, I think, Guillermo,
yes.
I think you're gonna have to make Attorney Parra co-host. Do you have it at the access?
Let me see if I know how to do it. Maybe I have it, but let me see. Right click. Oh yeah, I can.
Access. You have access?
Do you want to change Camilo Parra? Yes, I did.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yes. Well, I learned to do something. We have Eagle Net Elementary, Weingart Elementary School, and Ventura Elementary School. Joined Licenciado Parra. Now for everybody, an official, we are going to start this presentation with a Dr. Wayne Dyer quote. And he said, Dr. Wayne Dyer, that we can only give to others what we have inside ourselves. Camilo Parra, for having an idea, Camilo spent his 3 years of law school. And the first 2 years of his experience as a lawyer, helping homeless and unprivileged community here in Central Florida. For only that, my friend, give me goosebumps. Thank you so much, Licenciado Parra. He is working now as a housing attorney at the Legal Aid Society of Orange County Bar Association, that he shared already the phone number, and we're gonna copy and paste many times during the presentation. And Camilo understand what is at stake of Florida tenant during this hard time, the COVID-19 we all living. Camilo Parra, it's an honor to have you here in the 4 Title I Elementary School. Camilo, all yours. Si alguien que no hable inglés, lo podemos hacer en español, pero todo el mundo habla inglés hoy. Thank you, Camilo. All yours.
Hi, good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
That was a very, very kind invitation. I really appreciate you, Guillermo, and it's a pleasure to be here. Let's just jump right into it. I know everybody's probably got a lot of questions, So first, I want to make sure, does this slide appear? Can you guys see what I'm looking at? The CDC order temporarily halting evictions?
Yes.
Let's jump right into it. This is currently, it's all we got. It's the only protection we have right now that is any different from what we typically have in Florida when we're talking about evictions. Now, I won't spend much time here talking about how everything's affecting the foreclosures. In summary, it really depends on a lot of factors for foreclosures, but bottom line, call your servicer. If it's an HOA or condominium association situation, talk to them. Try and work something out. There's going to be a link of resources that are applicable to mortgages, but not necessarily the HOA and COA. So hopefully people will take the time to read these resources and learn about their options. Bottom line, there are a lot of options out there for relief, but until you actually ask for it or find out what's available, you won't know. So please communicate with your servicer. And that's about all we're going to talk about mortgages and all that. Now we're just going to talk about evictions and the CDC order that is currently the only protection we have. So this is just a brief overview of what the CDC order does and doesn't do. So what does it actually do? It provides temporary and limited relief for residential tenants from evictions for non-payment of rent through March 31st. So let's break that down into a few pieces. First of all, this is temporary and limited. So clearly, once this thing expires, we're not going to have these protections anymore. They're set to expire March 31st. These protections have been extended over and over and over again. So I really feel like it could go either way. We might get another extension. We very well may not. So what I've been telling everyone from the very beginning is pretend there will be no extension. Plan as if there will be no extension because we don't know. We really don't know. As far as limited, when we go into what this order actually does, you'll see these are very limited protections. These protections are not, they're not as extensive as a lot of people think they are. And they don't do all the things a lot of people think they do. These are for only residential tenants. So if we're talking about like a commercial tenancy, like if you're renting room at the mall for your store, that's not gonna, this doesn't have anything to do with that, just residential. If you're like a house guest, if you're like a family member staying somewhere and there is no landlord-tenant relationship, you're just there as a guest, this does not apply to you. You have to actually be a tenant. And then the last part of this, we're still on the very first bullet point, is non-payment of rent. So this provides some relief for evictions for the non-payment of rent. So what I'm saying is if your landlord has a different reason other than non-payment to try to evict you, this may not necessarily help you. I'll give you some very common examples. We have a lot of tenants right now who their problem is their landlord did not renew their lease and their lease expired. And depending on how that lease is written, depending on when it expires, this is where it all gets kind of messy. Bottom line, as long as the landlord did things properly, you can very well get evicted right now for just staying past your welcome, staying past the expiration of your lease. If anyone here is in that position, please don't panic. Just because your lease has expired does not mean your landlord's going to evict you right away. But it does mean that if your landlord does the proper things to try to put you on notice that they're not renewing your lease, then that is actually something that if you're not out when you're supposed to be, could result in an eviction for which there's no protections currently. So just keep that in mind. Another thing I will encourage everyone, no matter what position you're in, no matter what stage of the process you're in, reach out to your local legal aid organizations. I'm going to give you guys a link to where you can find out all the legal aid organizations in Florida, who they serve geographically, and please call them. If you're living in Orange County, like probably most people on this call or who may watch this down the line, please call the Legal Aid Society of the Orange County Bar Association. That's where I work. We would love to try and take your application and see if we can help. We can't help everyone. Not everyone's eligible, but we do look at every application. And if you're eligible, we try at the very least to give you a consult where we give you an individualized idea of what it is you're up against and what your options may be. So that's just the gist of what this order can and can't do. It's important to note these are not automatic protections. They don't just automatically protect you. There's a very specific thing you have to do in order to be protected by the CDC order. Thank God it's very simple. All you need to do is get a CDC declaration. It's a specific document that you can Google. Literally, if you Google CDC declaration, it's probably the first thing that comes up. It's a quick one-page document where you're just reading it.
Licenciado Parra,
Yes,
let me interrupt you real quick. Can you hit full screen on your presentation?
Sure, thank you, thank you. That is a good idea. Let me see how to do that.
Probably right there.
There we go. Is that better?
Much better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the CDC declaration is a document that you have to read, make sure all of it's true. It's going to have a bunch of statements. You're making sure they're all true. If they're all true and you sign it and you give it to your landlord, then you're protected. It's as simple as that. But don't just take the fact that you've given one to your landlord as it. Like what I'm saying is keep a copy for yourself. Don't put yourself in a position where you give your landlord this paper and then they lose it and then you can't prove that you didn't give it to them. So ideally, get this document, read it, make sure all of it's true. Once you've done so, keep a copy for yourself, give your landlord a copy, and then be prepared. If your landlord files an eviction against you, you can use that document to try to buy you a little time to keep you in the property until the end of the month, this month, when it's set to expire. Or if we're lucky enough, maybe it'll get extended and it'll protect you a little further. But remember, it's not automatic until you've done the CDC declaration. The protections simply do not exist. Now, more about the limitations of what this order doesn't really do. It doesn't prevent your landlord from opening the case. And that's a big misconception. A lot of people right now are like, oh, I don't got to worry about this. They'll never open a case against me. There's a moratorium. A moratorium, I wouldn't even call it a moratorium, because a moratorium gives you the impression that it's prohibited, it's forbidden, it's not happening, it's not allowed, it's barred. But that's not really the case. Your landlord can open an eviction case against you. They can win the case. They can close the case. They can get a piece of paper from the judge saying, you win. You're going to get this property back. The only thing, at least here in Florida, that this order seems to do is prevent that very last step, the very last step of an eviction, the physical removal. And so here in Florida, we call that the writ of possession or the 24-hour writ. Some people might know it as that. It's simply a piece of paper that a sheriff serves on you. And it says, look, you got 24 hours to get out. And if when I come back 24 hours later, you're still here, the sheriff's actually allowed to physically remove you. That's really the only part of the process that, based on what we're seeing here in Florida, is consistently being prevented by this order. At least here in Orange County. Other counties are a little more lucky in that maybe it will stop the whole case, just stop it in its tracks. Other parts of Florida, unfortunately, we've seen it's been deemed to be unconstitutional, but that's extremely rare. Do not panic. Just try to use the CDC order. Know that at least here in Orange County, it is very likely to keep you in the home until the end of the month. As long as you sign the document, give it to your landlord, let the courts know you did it. If you never let the courts know, and I wouldn't put it on your landlord to let them know. You should let them know. So you should file a copy of it. It should keep you in there till the end of the month. But remember, it's not for every type of eviction. And it's not perfect because they can open that case. And that's a big thing a lot of people don't realize is once that case gets open, once you're at that point that the landlord opened the case, the mere fact it was opened cannot really be easily undone. So what I'm saying is if your landlord opens this case against you, and then somehow you're able to resolve things and convince them to let you stay, and maybe they dismiss it, even if things go that well, it's still on your record. When someone does a background search on your name, they're very likely gonna see that at some point someone opened an eviction case against you. Are most of these places doing background searches, doing the background search themselves? Not really. And are most of these places where they get their background search from, are they getting like a sophisticated, detailed report on your cases? I highly doubt it. All they're probably getting is, was there ever a case opened? Maybe how long ago? And maybe if it was closed or if there was a final judgment. But other than that, they just want to know, was there a case or not? They're probably not going to go and rifle through your court papers and figure out who won, who lost, was this good, was this bad. So the idea is if you can prevent that thing from being filed, that is a priority, because as soon as that thing's filed, it's on your record. And then when you go to apply to a new place to stay down the road, it's going to be harder. Now, what else do we need to go over here on this slide? If you're in this position where you're using the CDC order to try and protect yourself and your family from that final step of the case, keep in mind that your landlord could very well ask for a hearing to confirm that everything on that CDC declaration is true. So some examples, some more common examples. The CDC declaration has on it a statement where you're saying, I've done my best job to make partial payments as best as I can. If your landlord can prove you never tried to make a single partial payment and you kind of just ghosted them, back in March of last year, this order might not help you unless you can prove that you've been trying to make partial payments. So what I'm getting at is this. Anyone who's using the CDC order to protect themselves and their family, one, make sure you read it, make sure you understand everything on it, and then sign it so that you're not lying by signing it, because when you sign it, you're swearing everything's true. And then start to gather whatever documents you have to try to prove all these statements are true. Will you absolutely need all this evidence? Maybe not. Maybe not. If your landlord's not going to be too much of a stickler about it, maybe not. But if your landlord asks for that hearing, you don't want to show up to that hearing and have no evidence of anything. You know what I mean? So things to start collecting now rather than later might be anything related to your unemployment status you can have, anything related to your applications for assistance, rental assistance, unemployment assistance, whatever you're applying for, keep record of it. Communications with your landlord where you've tried to make partial payments, keep those safe. You might need them. Some other examples are your pay stubs. If that's the only way you can confirm how much money you've been making, your pay stubs. If you're owning your own business, you got to find some way to track it to show that you've had less income. The idea is everything on that CDC declaration, it's real short, just read it. Make sure you're ready to back it all up. Make sure you're ready to corroborate these things just in case. Now, some landlords are also doing that constitutional challenge that I mentioned earlier in some parts of the state is actually working. Those are few and far between. Don't get too stressed out by that. For now, just read that document, make sure it applies, sign it, give it to your landlord. And right now, start getting all the documents you might need to prove all of it's true, just to be safe. Now, as far as what the CDC order does and doesn't do, kind of the gist of it. There are some things I didn't mention though that maybe aren't so obvious, like your rent that you're not paying. The CDC order doesn't change your obligation to pay it. It might keep you in the house a little longer, but it does nothing about the debt. The debt remains. It's still a valid debt. The landlord can still collect it like any other debt. When they're filing an eviction against you, they may very well, at the same time, filing you for the money or suing you for the money. Is that always the case? No, actually, no. Most cases are just for possession. They're just asking for the property back, but there's nothing keeping them. They could, at the same time, say, we also are suing you for the money. They could also just wait down the road to sue you for the money. But neither of those are too common. What's most common, if I'm being honest, is they'll treat it like a regular debt, meaning they'll probably send it to a debt collector. You'll get emails, you'll get letters, you'll get calls. There'll be people just harassing you for the money, basically. And it'll probably go on your credit. So just keep in mind that while this can protect you and your family, keep you in the home a little longer, it doesn't do anything about the debt. You're still contractually obligated to make those rental payments, and it's still a valid debt. And that's about it as far as the CDC order that I think people need to be aware of. On this next slide is a bunch of resources that I want everyone to check out. The first one is a very nice summary of what here in Florida are the rights between a landlord and a tenant, and what are the obligations between a landlord and the tenant. It's a summary that was put together by the Florida Bar Foundation, a great summary that any tenant and any landlord in Florida, if you haven't read this thing yet, please do. Please read it. The next one is the actual CDC Declaration. It's that one-page document we've been talking about this whole time. Please read it. Make sure you understand it. There are Spanish, other language versions of this document out there, but know that the one you got to give your landlord is the one your landlord understands. So it's fine to look for the Spanish one. It's fine to look for any language one you want to make sure you understand it, but make sure the one you give to your landlord is one they can understand. So probably English, but it depends on your landlord, of course. As far as this next one, mortgage relief resources, this is good for anyone who's worried about their mortgage. Check it out. It'll tell you, it'll give you some ideas of what types of relief options are out there, how to utilize them. The next one is the list of legal aid organizations in Florida. This is useful for anyone in Florida facing any type of legal circumstance who doesn't have a lot of money. These are the legal aid organizations that you can call and try to apply to, and hopefully, God willing, if you're approved and eligible, they can try to help you out at no cost to you. They won't charge you fees. They might charge you costs, like if it costs them money to file something, potentially, depending on what it may be, they might charge you stuff like that, but they're not going to charge you a fee. It's not for profits, okay? And this is a place that everyone should be visiting anytime they're worried about something with the law and they want to see if their local legal aid can help. Please check out this list of resources. And then the last thing on here, this is the link to the newest Orange County Emergency Rental Assistance Program. This came out at the beginning of this month. Some of you have probably already heard of the Eviction Diversion Program. That's the one we had that expired semi-recently. This is the newest one. It just came out. It's actually more accessible to the general public for a number of reasons, but to keep it real short and sweet, it takes a little bit less to apply. You don't need as much stuff. You don't have to prove as much stuff to be approved. And also, there's less strings attached to the money. In the old round, the EDP, there was a lot of strings attached to the money, and it made a lot of landlords kind of shy away from it. They're like, "Ooh, this is too much for us to have to kind of sign and agree to, too messy for them." This newest round is a little simpler, and there's way more money you can get. It's over twice as much. This is a $10,000 cap. So please check this out. If you're worried about making rent, if you're already behind in rent, check it out. Encourage your landlord to help you. Keep in mind, this program is completely voluntary, meaning if your landlord's just like, "Nope, we're not taking it, we're not accepting it," you can't force them. But I hope that your landlord will recognize this is a really good option. This is a great opportunity. So yeah, that's all I got for you. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Jenny, because she's sharing the link. We're gonna copy and paste all of them.
Okay,
For how long? As soon as the financial situation change, the person has to can stay in the house, like have a period on the apartment. What I mean to say.
Are we talking about under the new Orange County program, the new eviction?
Yes, I have the new eviction program.
This program, one big difference between this program and the previous program is that the previous program had this workout agreement. It's a contract that both the landlord and the tenant have to sign with additional rights and obligations. Think of it as a modification of their previous lease agreement. The old EDP program had this requirement where the landlord had to promise to keep the tenant for a full 60 days after receiving the funds. This one does not have that protection, which some might view as a bad thing because that means, oh, well, then can the landlord take the money and then try to evict me for other reasons? Kind of. But this program, a lot more landlords, I'm hoping, are going to be interested in because there's no strings attached compared to before. Before, they used to have to agree to a lot more than this. So I'm hopeful they'll still sign on. But it is worth mentioning, and I'm glad you pointed it out, that this program doesn't mean your landlord has to keep you any longer than they're already supposed to. So if your lease has already expired, your landlord doesn't have to promise to keep you, doesn't have to promise to renew your lease. They can take these funds and at least help you get rid of that debt, but it will not necessarily lead to a new tenancy or a prolonged tenancy. I hope that answered your question.
And two questions in the same line. If and this is basically from my own knowledge, if the tenant, the landlord will sue you again, the moratorium waive the lawyer fee or the all those fees that the landlord will include, or only make you responsible of the rent. You know, there are two different things: the attorney fee and the those fee that the motion landlord put it on. It's only the rent or the whole thing.
So I have two answers because I think I have two answers because I heard maybe two questions. The first one is talking about just the CDC order and what the government is putting on us. So like what the new laws are. There is no requirement on your landlord to waive any late fees, waive any collection costs. Just on the law that we have, the CDC order and Florida law itself, your landlord can charge you all those late fees. They can charge you all that as long as your lease agreement says they can. They can't just make up late.
Oh yeah, I know.
Be in your lease agreement, but yes, it based on just the law, they can still charge you all that. But thank you for asking. The Orange County program, if your landlord applies and is approved, then they're supposed to waive the late fees for the period that you're getting paid for. So another way to look at it is, if they accept those program funds, you shouldn't have any lingering late fees or any lingering costs or interest or stuff like that. You should be covered. You know what I mean? In order for them to accept the money, they have to say, yeah, this is good. We're not going to come back and say, oh, but you still owe us this from that tenancy. No, that's not what they're going to, or they won't let the landlord do that, basically. They won't let you take the money and then say, oh, but you're still in my debt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. And the last question, before I share, other people may have other question. I do have a family that they don't came, but they asked me to ask you this particular question. They are not in the class because they're getting ready for a kidney transplant. They have two children, and his father just quit the job to be able to deal with all the responsibility. The Orange County moratorium cover is linked of COVID-19 only, or is in this case he able to qualify to this program?
That's a really good question, and I'm really glad you asked that, because that is something that I should have pointed out. And if you hear the lawnmower outside, I apologize. I'll mute myself for 1 second because it's going to get loud. I'm so sorry.
No problem.
No problem.
Okay, it seems to be kind of quiet. So the question was, could you repeat the question? I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. Basically, let me just put it this way. The moratorium is only for the COVID related loss of job, or is a moratorium is all kind of, losing the job, not needed, have to be about COVID?
Two answers again. So first, the moratorium. So the CDC order. The CDC order does not require a direct COVID-19 impact.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, if you just happen to lose your job and it had nothing to do with COVID-19, the CDC order will still protect you. If you had a financial loss, or maybe you happen to get like your friend you just described, they're having a medical issue that really doesn't have anything to do with COVID-19, for them, the CDC order still applies. The CDC order is not looking for a specific COVID-19 impact, but the new Orange County program is. So I'm really glad you mentioned that. The Orange County Rental Assistance Program does require something that is directly linked to COVID-19 in order for you to be eligible for the assistance. So I guess the way I'd answer that is, arguably, depending on what the program says, I don't control the program. They might even say, no, that's close enough. They might tell your friend, I'm not sure you're eligible because it sounds like the reason you're behind is a health issue that has nothing to do with COVID-19. So I'm not really sure how the county would handle that for the rental assistance program. It sounds like it's up in the air, but the CDC order will protect you even if the reason you lost income isn't directly related to COVID-19. Did that answer it?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Thank you. And the last one came also when I hear another question. I like to put myself in that position in order to try to squeeze you the most information I can for my parents. During the process, that enough proof to qualify to any other help that the assistance from the governor to be in the moratorium process that linked to any other help?
So do I have links
Any
to
other
help?
qualification help available in the county? I don't know
I think what you're trying, I think what he's trying, are you trying to say, Guillermo, does it open it up to other
Exactly.
benefits? You're enrolled in the moratorium and you did the whole process.
So the moratorium itself, so the CDC order temporarily halting evictions, it doesn't really have like a database anywhere where they're keeping track of who's used it or hasn't used it.
Okay.
So really the answer is no. Just because you filled out the CDC declaration doesn't necessarily open up the path to a bunch of other programs. But, and this is where each program is a little different, for all I know, there's a program out there that the only way they will approve you is if you show them that CDC declaration. Maybe that I could see that happening, but on its own, it's not like there's some special program that it puts you on or any special database that it puts you on to give you any additional protections. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. If any other parent engagement have any question, please jump in. Help me out. or through the chat if anybody have any other question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out exactly how to ask this. I am serving little over 100 homeless students here through Weingart Elementary. Many of them are living among the hotels 11 on South Orange Blossom Trail. I have one family in a shelter. My question is, with the CDC protection or any of these resources, are there any that would be the most supportive to these types of families? I have families that are just giving me a receipt, weekly receipts. Some hotels are posing as like apartments and they have an actual lease. I don't know how to best support these families. And it's about to come down the pike, if this doesn't get extended.
That is a very good question, because that's a huge issue we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
Families that are living on those properties so I'll give you an example. If there's a family living in a property where it's literally a hotel or literally a motel,
yeah,
that by default is not a great situation to be in for a number of reasons. But let's address specifically why that is not good for either those trying to use the CDC order for protection or those trying to get the funds through the New Orange County program. And then we'll talk about how those individuals should still try to seek a legal aid organization to see if they can help them, because sometimes there's enough to overcome this, but you'll see that it is going to be a bit tough for them.
That's right.
First, let's address the CDC order. The CDC order temporarily halting evictions, it's specifically in one of its recent clarifications. It had like this FAQ that was supposed to clarify stuff that the CDC order put out. In that FAQ, they specifically said short-term rentals or hotels, motels, short-term tenancies where the occupant is not really considered a tenant, but they're considered a transient occupant or a transient guest. Those guys are not supposed to be covered under the CDC order. Having said that, some tenants here in Florida, they've been at the same place for like over 6 months. They've got kids who are registered to go to school in that area. They've been receiving mail in this place for months. They have a bunch of ways to show that this is really their home. They've been here at least 6 months. They don't have anywhere else that they live. They get all their stuff there. Their kids are registered there. For those guys, there's a little bit of an argument to make. Maybe the CDC order should apply. Maybe they should be allowed to apply to that Orange County program. But they do need all those things lined up. I'll actually give you an example of a recent client. I had a client who He'd lived at the same place for like years, and this was a motel for years, but he had a big problem. At the very beginning of his tenancy, if we can even call it that, they made him sign a piece of paper saying, this will never be a tenancy. You are not allowed to receive mail here. You are not allowed to treat this as a tenancy. This will always be short-term in nature. And what's worse is he never had a way to prove how long he'd been there. And he wasn't there continuously for those years. He'd be in and out, off and on. So for him, it was just basically impossible to prove that that was really his actual residency, his only sole residence. And there really wasn't much we can do for him. But if he had all that stuff to prove, maybe there was something to do at least with the CDC order. But here's where things are going to get real tough on that last part, the assistance through government. The Orange County Rental Assistance Program has a requirement where in order for the tenant to be eligible, they use the word arrangement. Their arrangement with their landlord cannot include what's called the hotel tax or the short-term rental tax. So bottom line, anyone who can look at whatever their statements are, their ledger, account history, agreement, whatever they have to prove what they're paying and where that money's going, if the landlord can show that they're being taxed that hotel tax, I don't know how they would overcome that for the purposes of receiving the Orange Rental Assistance funds, because it's clearly in the language that they cannot have that short-term rent or that hotel tax included in their arrangement. So the short answer to that question is it depends, and it's going to be tough for a lot of them. And I encourage all of them to reach out to their local legal aid organizations and see if they can get a little more of an individualized consult, see if there's anything they can do. But yeah, they're in a vulnerable position. Those are some of the most vulnerable members of our community.
That hotel tax loop, I just learned something major with that right now. Okay, cool. Yeah. Some of our hotels allow them to receive mail. They've been very cooperative through the launch ed process, but you know, once the end of the month comes, who knows what's going to happen. So that you helped me a lot. Thank you.
If I may, I want to kind of develop that a little more. Coupled with the problem of these short-term tenancies and these hotels and motels that are being treated almost like a residency, but then offer none of the rights or the protections. Coupled with that problem is a problem here in Florida, which is where a lot of our tenants are month to month or week to week or day to day, and do not realize how limited their rights are to the property in that circumstance. So for example, at least half of my clients are month to month. I'd say about half. And that half of our clients, I have to give them really tough news. I have to tell them, look, if you anger your landlord, if you push them enough to where they're just sick of you and they don't want you there anymore, even if it's clearly they're the bad guy here, clearly they're misbehaving, clearly they're not doing what they're supposed to do. If you're month to month, you're a 15-day notice away from being out, and the CDC order won't apply. And there's no real defense to that type of thing, like where you're told specifically through writing that your month-to-month lease will not be renewed, as long as they gave you the enough time, which is 15 days. And let's clarify this 15-day notice. The way to tell is this: if you get a letter from your landlord and you're month to month, meaning you don't have any lease saying you're allowed to be there until a later date, it just says you, or maybe there is no lease. So it could be either way. You could have a lease that says this is month to month, or you could have no lease at all, but you happen to pay your rent monthly. And a lot of people end up in that position because their old lease expired and they just kept paying month to month. When you're month to month, if you get a letter from your landlord saying, this is the last month, we are not renewing, and you need to be out at the end of this month, as long as you got that letter at least 15 days away from the end of the current month, then it's completely legitimate and enforceable. And come the 1st of next month, your landlord has everything they need to open an eviction case against you that will be very, very hard to defend against. If your landlord can just prove that you were a month-to-month tenant and they gave you the sufficient notice and you didn't move out when you were supposed to, they can very quickly evict you. And they can even arguably try to say that you're a holdover tenant. A holdover tenant is a tenant who overstayed their welcome. They stayed longer than they were supposed to. those tenants can be held liable for double rent for the month they overstayed. It's rough. It's rough. So here's the big thing. Everyone should know how vulnerable month-to-month tenancy is. And everyone should understand that it's a two-way street. So that same 15-day notice letter is true for the tenant. The tenant could very well decide one day, I am sick of this place. I am out of here. I'm giving my landlord 15 days of notice that I'm not renewing and I'm getting out of here. That's also legitimate and also enforceable. The trouble is, it's a heck of a lot easier for a landlord to tell someone they're not renewing than for a tenant to figure out where they're going to go next, come up with the money. It's not a very fair balance of power, if you ask me.
Wow.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great question. Thank you.
I'm welcome at Garcia at Lake Gem Elementary, the same parent engagement. Garcia, do you have any question to ask the attorney Camilo Parra? It's showing us my name because I just share my link.
I'll rename it.
Lake Jam, go ahead. If you have any question, please join us. Garcia, I know you have a lot of family also.
Hey, yeah, so Norman Straub, I have a quick question. Right now, so I'm right now I'm behind a month and a half on my rent, and I was supposed to get well, I made an agreement with my landlord that I was supposed to wait for a check from my 401k because I started a new job. So what I was gonna do is that I filed for the termination withdrawal, and I was supposed to get a certain amount, but then for some reason, the amount they told me was the incorrect amount. So I was supposed to get like 2,600, and I only ended up getting 150. So now I'm at the situation where I don't know what to tell my landlord because, you know, I was supposed to receive that money last Friday, and technically I did get it, but it was only $150. So my question is, what can I work out with my landlord without sounding like a person who just makes up stories, you know, quote unquote, or him not believing me, you know?
Good question. So I have a few questions so that we can give you a better answer. First question is, was there a written lease agreement, or do you have one currently that isn't expired?
It's not expired. It expires. It actually expires next month.
Next month, at the end of next month?
The 23rd of April.
Okay. And then my next question is, what day of the month per your lease is your rent actually due?
So we came to an agreement. So on the lease, it says the 23rd, but because of the way COVID hit at the time and how much I was getting paid, and when I was getting paid, I asked him if we could push it for the 1st. He said yes, just write it on the lease, and he was gonna do the same thing. So
Did you both ever sign that modification? I know he said he'd write it in. Did you ever sign a written modification, and did your landlord ever sign a written modification?
No, we didn't.
Arguably, unless you can prove you had those communications with the landlord. So like maybe you have like an email string or text messages or something proving your landlord agreed to this, your landlord arguably could say, I don't know what you're talking about. And so this is, I appreciate you asking this question, and I hope I can answer it. But what I really want to do is I want to use this question as an opportunity for everyone to learn a really important lesson. And it's that anytime you come to an agreement with your landlord, it needs to be in writing. And especially if you have a written lease agreement, you want that modification to also be in writing, and you want that modification to be signed by your landlord, because I would bet If we took a look at your lease agreement right now, it would have a clause in it that says any modifications must be in writing and must be signed by both parties. So what I'm saying is, by the very terms of the lease agreement, there's a good chance that you guys haven't actually properly modified your lease agreement, and the old agreement is what actually is enforceable. You know what I mean? And so that was my next question is, when you came to the agreement to change the date it was due and all of that, and when you came to the agreement that you would pay whatever, you know, that amount that you're receiving, was that all in writing as well?
Yes.
Was it signed by the landlord?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's actually not too bad. So in short, your best option here is if you can prove two things. One, that you were really expecting to receive that first amount. And then you can prove that you weren't expecting to receive that lower amount, that you did actually receive that lower amount. So just one more time, if you can prove you were expecting the higher amount, and then you can prove that you actually received the lower amount, it doesn't do much good for you in terms of like anything besides convincing your landlord that you didn't do this with bad intentions. You're not trying to pull a fast one here. You got, you know, an unexpected circumstance. I would always encourage any client to be honest with the landlord, tell them what's going on, keep an open line of communication. And in your case, if you can back up the fact that you were expecting X amount and then you ended up receiving the other amount, I would show that to the landlord and just see if they can work with you. Have you at this point received what's called a 3-day notice?
No.
Good. Okay. So here's the big takeaway from all of this. Until you've gotten that 3-day notice from your landlord hasn't even really started to try to evict you yet. But as soon as you get that 3-day notice, so it's literally a piece of paper that says you owe me X amount and I'm giving you 3 business days to pay it. And it usually tells you that if you don't either pay it within 3 business days or give them back the property within 3 business days, then on that 4th day, they can very well go and open an eviction case. But if they haven't done that yet, maybe you don't have anything to really panic about just yet, but know that if you get that 3-day notice, that means they're gearing up for an eviction. And within those 3 days, if you're unable to come up with all the money or give them back the property or convince them to not file an eviction, then they very well on that 4th day could initiate the process, which would immediately go on your record. And if you use the CDC order, would hopefully keep you in the property till the end of the month. But at that point, the eviction is on your record, and it's going to make it much harder when you're looking for a new place to stay, because they could very well take your money, run your application, then deny you, and then you're out whatever the fee was for the application.
Okay. Yeah, because, you know, also on Saturday, me and my wife ended up doing our taxes, and we're gonna get a pretty good amount. So, you know, my plan with that is to show the landlord, like you just said, show him that I was supposed to get X amount, but show him my bank statement that I only got the lower amount, and then show him proof that, you know, when me and my wife did our taxes on Saturday, that this is the amount that we're gonna get, and like this is X amount that we're gonna give you. Is that like a good thing that I could do right now?
I don't see any issues with it. But here's the thing to keep in mind. And maybe here's let me go back with what I really should have opened my answer with. My answer really should have opened with, you and your landlord can come to any agreement you want as long as you can prove that it's the agreement. You know what I mean? So like, it's just, don't put yourself in a position where your landlord tells you one thing, but you don't have a way to prove it. But really, you're at their mercy here. If they want to work with you, they can work with you. If you want to come to any agreement with them that they're willing to agree to, there's no problem with that. I encourage you to negotiate with them, communicate with them, help them help you. But also be aware they don't really have any obligation to actually work with you. They don't have any actual legal obligation to offer you all this stuff. So this may be another way of me saying you want to stay in their good graces. You want to stay on their good side, because if they decide, you know what, we don't want to work with you, they could just hit you with that 3-day notice. They could just file that eviction after the 3 days have passed, and then that's on your record. And whatever happens next, you can't undo the fact it's on your record. Not currently, at least. Our laws could change, but we don't know how soon that could happen, or if at all. I hope that answers your question, Norman, and I really hope that they're able to work with you. And also look into the eviction, the new eviction diversion program, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program here in Orange County. See if it's something you and your landlord would be interested in. If you're both interested and you both are approved, it might take care of all of it, hopefully.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's definitely something I'll do. I appreciate it so much.
You're welcome, man. Hang in there and know that you and your family are far from alone. This is a global wide issue.
Thank you very much.
Any other question?
Yeah, and I just want to add all the links that Attorney Parra just shared with us, in addition to the ones I had on my PowerPoint, they're all in the chat. Just reach out if you need more information or you want to do a one-on-one financial counseling. Extension has those services available as well. If you're interested in that, reach out. I'll go ahead and put the email on there if anybody's interested.
Any other question, please?
Guillermo, just wanted to thank Attorney Parra and everybody who's assisting with the presentation today. I'll be sharing the information with my Lake Gem families. Looking forward to hopefully the recording so I can share that as well. We'll put it on YouTube. I guess we'll combine and share that address with the families as well. But thank you, Attorney Parra. Great information.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Adias. Thank you, Adias, also to be here. If we don't have any other question, do you know by any chance, or you aware that the new deal, COVID deal that the president is working will extend this moratorium, Camilo?
As it stands, so as far as what is being proposed currently and what's been passed so far and what's still kind of up in the air, it doesn't actually mention an extension of the moratorium. It does not.
Oh, wow.
I continue to tell every client always, pretend it's not going to be extended. Plan as if it will not be extended. But having said that, I'm really hopeful it's going to get extended. You know,
Absolutely.
who knows? It might. It's been extended. To put it this way, every time it's been extended so far, I've been like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe this. This is amazing. So I hope that continues to happen, but don't count on it. Don't put yourself in a position where you're relying on it because it may very well not.
Yeah. All right. If we don't have any other question, in the name of Orange County Public School and 5 Title I school, we deeply thank you, Camilo, for this information. And if it's okay with you, we're going to share this information and this video with all our family via everywhere, email and also YouTube. Diaz, you're in charge of that, please. We talked today about it. Thank you so much, Camilo. If you have any other say, please do so. Gracias.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure being here. And I'm, if you ever need me for anything similar to this, or maybe another area of law, and I can try to find you an attorney, let me know. Community education might be the only way we're going to get out of this mess, is if the community knows what we're doing, what we're up against, and how to plan accordingly. So thank you guys for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Camilo. I'm going to get you word. I'm going to spell my email. Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah, thank you so much, Attorney Parra. We're so grateful to your services and all that you do for the community. We're really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias a todos. Bendiciones. Thank you.
Cuídense. Que pasen muy buen día.
Igual.
Gracias, igual. Bye-bye.
Bye.